how to find your story spine using AI. Your boss wants 10 slides for the next meeting, but you've got 35. What you see is completeness, but the audience sees way too much. It's finding the story spine, that core thread that your whole presentation is built around. That's what we're doing today, and we can use AI to help. I'm Michael Bruner. I help technical professionals translate their expertise into meaning and impact. In this video, I'll show you how to find your communication spine and organize your presentation around it to help cut the noise and boost the signal and build a presentation that actually lands. You spent almost a year on this work. You know the work. You trust the work. Every piece is there for a reason. You've assembled a massive presentation that, quite honestly, only you can navigate for now. Your boss asked for an update and a preview of the deck before the meeting next week. Their response? Woo! This is a lot, but it's coming together. Can you trim it down and move about 80% to the appendix for this 20-minute meeting time slot? This is so frustrating after all the time and the effort that you've put into building the slides. You stare at the screen, scrolling through, trying to figure out what to cut, but every slide feels load-bearing. If you start moving pieces to the appendix, it feels incomplete, like a jigsaw with half the puzzle pieces missing. Here's what's actually happening. There are 3 problems. First and foremost, this is a scaling problem. This is not an editing challenge, it's a scaling problem. Getting down to 8 to 10 slides isn't about choosing some of the pieces and moving some to the appendix. It's really about representing the story that you have in 8 to 10 slides. Secondly, the proximity problem. You're too close. When you've lived inside of a project for months, you lose the ability to see what's core and what's context and adjacent. Your closeness makes you a poor judge of what they actually need. Thirdly, the expertise trap. The more you know, the harder it becomes to remember what it was like to not know. I cover more on this in my work called The Clarity Illusion. The antidote? Identify the story spine and reconstruct your narrative at a different resolution without losing its essence. It's not about the slides per se, it's more about knowing your story. You don't need fewer pieces, you need a different organizational construct. Until you have that construct, every cut, every trim will feel wrong. The process I'll walk you through has 3 steps. Our first step will be to prime AI with some additional content. Our second step is to prompt AI to find our story spine. The third step is to implement the presentation structure. The story spine is there, but it's usually hard to see. We're going to leverage artificial intelligence to make it easier to see that story spine. However, before we jump in, we want to give it a bit more targeted context. Start by adding 3 context slides at the beginning of your deck. Don't worry, these aren't presentation slides. They're just part of the briefing that makes everything else easy to sort, so they don't need to be pretty. They can just be black and white. Don't spend any time formatting these. If you prefer to work in a Word document, the Story Spine Companion tool is available for download. Just look in the description below. First, as always, is who. Let's start with our audience. Who's in the room? Will you be presenting to peers or your direct management chain? Top leadership? Or a cross-functional team? External partners or a mix? The answer changes everything. What belongs in the core, what gets moved to the appendix, and what level of detail earns its place. A slide that's essential for technical peers may be perceived as noise by an executive audience. Be specific if it's a mixed room and name the decision maker. The second piece of context we need to add is the what. Clarify the outcome of the meeting and what you need from them. What is the actual purpose of the presentation? Are you seeking a decision? Are you requesting resources? Are you asking for approval, or are you building support for a future ask? What are the constraints or anything else that shapes how this will land? If no decision is yet required, what must happen between now and decision time? This is the outcome of the meeting and the destination of your presentation deck. Everything in the core should be moving the audience towards that destination. Thirdly, context. If the decision is the destination, where are they starting? The context is the beginning where we set the scene. Is there an organizational tension or a strategic objective? Is the presentation responding to a specific concern that leadership raised? Is there a previous decision that this presentation builds upon? Is there any information or background information a stranger would need to know in order to be able to read the context correctly? If the answer is yes, write it down here. With those 3 slides in the presentation deck, AI has what it needs to do something more valuable than sorting. It can find the story spine. and this is where AI earns its place. Paste your slide deck into your AI tool of choice. Of course, be sure to meet the information requirements of your organization. Below is the story spine prompt I used. I'll put it in the description so you can just cut and paste. I'm preparing a presentation on topic X for audience Y. Attached is a slide deck with the detailed information plus 3 framing slides on the audience, the ask, and the context. First, identify the story spine. Then create a framework of information that supports each of the key elements: introduction, escalation, resolution, recommendation. After that, sort through the content and identify which element each piece supports. The core is essential to the story spine. Non-core is non-essential to make the argument. For each bucket, briefly explain why the content landed there. What comes back may surprise you. AI has no attachment to your favorite slides. It reads your slides as an audience would, as a stranger encountering your material for the first time. It sees what's carrying the argument and what's decorating it. It separates the spine from the superfluous. It does the work of essentialism. It finds what's core and essential. You don't have to agree with every call that it makes, but use the output as a mirror. When AI puts something in the appendix bucket and your instinct is to argue with it, just pause. Ask yourself, are you defending the content or the work you put into it? Those are different things. The goal of this step is more than just a sorted content list. What comes back is a summary sentence that defines your argument and a story spine structure that you can use to organize your presentation around. Everything labeled core belongs in the room. Step 3 is to implement the story spine structure. The first thing that I do is read the summary sentence. Does it accurately describe what the presentation is trying to accomplish? Does it reflect the audience and the destination you're taking them? If yes, the sentence becomes your North Star. If it's off, just adjust it and rerun it through the prompt. Next, review the proposed story spine structure for your presentation. How does this outline feel? How does it flow? Is there anything missing or anything to adjust? It's really important because everything downstream is organized around that story spine structure, so it needs to be right before you move on. Now that you have a guide, you can move all of your existing slides to the appendix. Don't delete anything. Your work is the content library to pull from. The appendix is not a graveyard, it's the source material. Next, insert slides as placeholders that represent your story spine structure. Before you build any slides, write headlines, each that is a complete thought. These titles, read in order, actually become the executive summary. It's easy for you and executives to follow. First, spend time on the opening headline. Make sure that it connects with the audience and sets the tension. Write that headline. Now that you have the beginning, don't go to the next slide, go to the end. Now you can write your closing. What is the decision or the recommendation or the action that you're driving towards? Linear thinkers will want to do the end last. Resist the instinct. In presentations, the destination is the organizing principle. Everything needs to drive towards it. Now that you have a beginning and an end that reflect one another, you can build out the headlines for the middle slide. You can use the story spine structure as your guide. One headline per section, just the title, nothing else, no need to build out the slides. When the sequence of headlines feels right and flows right, now you can go back to the appendix and identify the information that supports each point. Your previous work becomes the evidence and the support, not the structure. Once you format it, what you have isn't just a trimmed version of your original presentation. It's a purpose-built presentation that's organized around a story spine for a specific audience, sized for the room. Pulling it all together, we're in the final phase. One final check, then go build it. Before you finish your presentation preparation, run one more prompt. It can help detect blind spots. Here's my core outline. Based on the audience and the context and my desired outcome, what questions might they expect that this presentation would answer that it doesn't? What gaps are there that might undermine my credibility or leave them confused? If presentations are too long, it tests the patience of the audience and you lose their attention. But gaps can destroy credibility. So take time and close any gaps, or at least have answers to them before the presentation. You started with a deck that only you could navigate. You now have one sentence that succinctly captures your argument, a core structure built around it, and a presentation that's sized for the room you're walking into. The work you did is valuable. The slides you built are still available. We moved what could be a disconnect to the appendix. This isn't editing, it's a different kind of work, it's translation. You took everything that you know and rebuilt it at a resolution that fits the time for your audience to receive. That's the skill, to be able to scale and articulate your message in 1 minute or 3 minutes or 5 or 15. You don't need AI to do this. You can find your communication spine. AI just makes it easier to reflect back what your audience may be seeing so you can find it faster. Now you know how to shorten the content and elevate your game. Next steps, try this process in your next presentation. Hit the subscribe button, watch the audience video and the tension video, and we'll see you in the next one.